following announcement has been paid for by the
Mark Order.
Welcome to the Elite Mark Order podcast, where we talk about all things AEW. And tonight, we talk about Dynamite and the C2, the Continental Classic. I've got a PhD in THC. I'm the Doctor of Pot, CosmicScott. And tonight, I am joined by my partner and co-host who enjoys his wrestling more like NJPW, JayV. How are you, JayV?
Hey, what's going on? Yeah, definitely there's been some people complaining that AEW is too much like New Japan lately, which was, thanks QT Marshall. But that's kind of hilarious. But yeah, good stuff going on. The Continental Classic's going on. We're gonna wrap up Dynamite for you from last night, and let's get into it.
We do have a lot to cover, and if you haven't already, please give us a subscribe, press the like button, and leave a comment down below about your thoughts on last night's Dynamite, your thoughts on the Continental Classic, your thoughts on everything. It really helps drive the YouTube algorithm. Support is always appreciated, and we are on the drive to 1,000, so please help. So let's go ahead and talk about, it's been the big story for a long time, several weeks now, and that is Toni Storm and Skye Blue have got some cake. It's hard to deny those two women have behinds. What's your take on the cake in the ring?
Baby got back.
They
are they're representing in the ring, and they're sharing the wealth. So
they only got one segment again, but I think they maximized it this week. First and foremost, Skye Blue knows the memes are about her ass. Some people are complaining. They're like, oh, the only reason she's popular is because she's got a butt. Well, first and foremost, that thing is stunning. Second, and secondarily, the fact of the matter is you get over how you get over. Tell me that there haven't been guys who've gotten over because of just their body. Lex Luger comes to mind. Chris Masterson comes to mind. So, selling a part of your body in that manner, I don't necessarily blame her. She's got an ass. She knows how to use it. Toni
were these same people crying about our very own Mr. Ass, Scissor Me Daddy, when he was wearing the big lipstick on his butt and running around as Mr. Ass in WWE? Were they complaining then?
Maybe not. Maybe then again, they might have, because these people just love to complain. But that said, because it was Mr. Ass in WWE, WWE could do no wrong for at least some of these. Right. Some people really, the tribalism is beyond just divisive. It's the fact that people are getting worked up over a TV show. The fact is, there's literally nothing that this could impact your life about, unless you happen to be in the industry. And, hey, there's every level of work in the industry. Good on you, no matter where you're at. But if you're a fan like us, you're an Elite Mark, EliteMarkOrder.com, join us in the Discord. If you're just a regular guy or girl, and you just happen to like wrestling, okay, it's just a TV show. Relax. It's not super important. You know what? I don't care if the WWE does well or does poorly. I was a fan for a majority of my life. I don't happen to like a lot of what they do as a corporation, so I don't support them anymore. I like the wrestlers. If they show up on a show that I support, like AEW, fantastic. If they don't, if they continue to work for WWE, I wish them well. I'm just not going to support them by watching them. The tribalism gets old, man. Like what you like. Who cares what other people like? I happen to like women's asses.
The discourse is never going to end, and it's only going to get worse over time, especially if these trends continue, where WWE keeps getting bigger and AEW keeps getting smaller. So, yeah, I understand that when AEW first started out and started picking up steam and was actually like beating Raw in the 18 to 49 demo, a few times. Like, the AEW fans were shitting all over WWE.
Yeah.
And, as soon as things went the other way, a lot of the AEW fans asked for the reprisal that they received. But I haven't gotten involved in any of it on social media. I don't care. A lot of it's just people trolling and getting attention. I mean, it's amazing how some of these troll accounts are so well known and have so many followers. And,
we were talking about that in the Discord, where it's just they posted something. It was a really bad take, and they've got millions of likes and followers. It's like, why? How does it improve anything? That's my question. How does it help or build or improve anything? It doesn't take much to tear something down. It takes a lot of effort to build something up.
Yeah, and it's very similar to, what's going on in the podcast space. I mean, the number one wrestling podcast is just some old dude shitting on AEW and shitting on the Elite for the most part. That's most of his content. And it's number one. And for some reason, these people get off on that, and, hey, more power to you, I guess, if that's your thing. But I just don't want anything to do with it. So.
Right. Well, we try to keep a little bit more positive, no matter how upset or angry we may get, no matter how disillusioned we may become with the product. We are at least going to try to stay a little bit positive. And I'm positive that the first match of the night, Jon Moxley versus Rush, was a goddamn banger, because those two went at it as expected. Rush didn't quite get his belly-to-belly overhead suplex from the apron to the floor, but he certainly got it on the floor into the barricade. Jon Moxley took a lot of punishment, as always. Ended up winning, as we expected. Rush is doing okay in the standings. He's got at least a win, so he's not eliminated like some other people. But, Moxley won. Of course he won. As he cut in the promo afterwards, he's like, I expect to win. I expect to win the whole goddamn thing. I'm the ace of the world. I can't disagree with Moxley. What was your opinion on the match and Moxley?
Hard-hitting match, as we would expect from Rush and Mox. It's just the Tranquillo thing with Rush is kind of interesting, because here you have this guy who's a complete maniac in the ring. He's one of the hardest hitters out there, and then he turns into this Tranquillo character where he spins around and acts like he doesn't care. I don't know. It just seems like the way Naito does it in Japan. It's like it's his whole gimmick. It's almost like he's like a version of Orange Cassidy, in a way, the way he carries himself, but because he just doesn't care. But Rush is like a complete opposite. So he goes from, it's like Jekyll and Hyde with him. He's like, okay, now after he's done destroying his opponent and beating him down, now he's just Tranquillo. He's cool. He's just relaxing in the ring. So it's just kind of a weird contrast. But yeah, good match. Mox and Rush, they each have 2 matches left. Rush has Swerve and Lethal. So Rush is probably going to go 1-1, and Mox has Swerve and Jay White left. So there's really the last 3 matches in this Go League, or the last the last 3 weeks are going to be pretty crazy, because you're going to have 3 guys well on the way to winning, or with a good chance of winning, between Mox, Swerve, and White. And of course, Swerve has the lead right now. But yeah, it's certainly an interesting bracket. I kind of feel sorry for Briscoe and Lethal. They're both 0-3.
Lethal was after tonight.
Yeah, I hope they both at least get. I might be spoiling because of
whatever.
Well, no, it's
no, tonight, as in they've already wrestled yesterday.
Yeah. I'm not referencing.
It was later in the show that Lethal.
Yeah, we're not talking spoilers. So yeah, I hope Lethal and Briscoe both at least get 1 win, and one of them doesn't get shut out. So it's just
as far as
as
far as a complete shutout goes, I think what we're going to see is, as far as what I'm going to call the losers bracket, because we have Jay Lethal, who didn't pick up a win tonight, and we have Mark Briscoe, who also didn't pick up a win, and they're now 0-3, and mathematically they cannot win the tournament. They can, however, as the not the spectators, as the announcers said, they can, however, make a really good showing for next year, and they can play the spoiler for some of the people going into their league finals. So,
just to jump in real quick, hey Robert, what's going on, man? Feel free to join us on stage if you want, but thanks for joining us. Feel free to use the chat to ask any questions if you want. Good to see you.
So that's really kind of how that's playing out with the losers bracket with Jay Lethal and Mark Briscoe. They ultimately are going to have to wrestle each other for the last place.
Yeah, it's a toilet bowl when you have the two teams that have never won.
And the third is Daniel Garcia, who probably, he's not doing so well either over in the Blue League.
Right.
So there's a lot of losing going on for people. And I understood that going in, but unlike the G2 or the G1, whatever it is, that basically the comparison is almost every match in the G1 is a potential match of the year candidate, it would seem.
I wouldn't go that far. Well, so I'm going to, there has been a lot of
people you are the expert. You are the expert. Please tell us.
So I have seen some discourse where people are saying, oh, this is shit compared to the G1. And it's like the old G1, when Kenny Omega was fighting 6 matches and they were all or 8 matches and they were all 4.5 stars or better. They were all classics. Yeah, those days are gone. New Japan has dumbed down their tournament. They have 4 brackets. They have 16 people in it, most of which have absolutely no chance or expectations. I think that AEW's tournament this year might be better than New Japan's was this year. So I just don't want to hear it. So,
well, I know that the spirit is they're trying to compare to the All Japan Triple Crown, which is why Eddie put up his title so it would be a Triple Crown champion across multiple. Technically, there's 2, 3 if you really count ROH, and nobody does. Titles across multiple promotions. And that's kind of what they want to do is not compare themselves, but sort of resurrect and honor that Triple Crown. That's their version of becoming more like NJPW, more like Japanese wrestling, I guess. You got the tournament, you got the Triple Crown. Those things just happen, and QT quit. There's got to be a correlation.
Yeah, so the Triple Crown was All Japan's title that Misawa, the 4 pillars of All Japan, fought for in the 90s. Jumbo Tsuruta, Stan Hansen, Dr. Death, Steve Williams all held that title. And then Misawa, Kawada, and Kobashi, of course, had some of the greatest matches over that title ever. So that's what the Triple Crown is a nod to was the All Japan title, which is still around. So there's someone has it, but that promotion is really small. It's kind of gone the way of NWA, where it used to be huge and now it's it's just a small indie promotion.
Yeah.
That makes its money on guest appearances of guys just paying a tribute to the taste of the past. So and then of course the New Japan G1 is what this tournament is based on, and I still have to wonder if New Japan's pissed at All Japan about this. Because they basically, G1 is one of the defining things about New Japan. I think it's the G1 raises more interest in their product than probably anything else besides their big Wrestle Kingdom show.
Yeah.
So they had to be pretty pissed, and of course New Japan was Danielson's going to come over and be in our G1 Climax. And Tony's you know what? Fuck it. Why don't I just do it? So you got to wonder if there might be some bad blood there.
There is a question of whether or not the New Japan relationship is, I won't say souring, but I will say moving out of the honeymoon phase. Because they do still have their annual pay-per-view. They still have that sort of working relationship as far as I'm aware of. But, yeah, putting on their own tournament does sort of steal the thunder from Japan. In a little
Absolutely.
bit.
Absolutely it does.
I guess we'll see. Because when's the G1?
The G1 was earlier in the year. It's over the summer.
Okay. So when the next summer comes around and people are still talking about the Continental Classic, then we'll know. But it's probably not going to happen. I don't know that it's going to overshadow because it is done 6 months. One's a summer, one's a winter. I think Toni did that on purpose. So there isn't
it's a part of it. But I mean, it takes something that New Japan was really known for, right?
Sure.
It's almost like if New Japan started doing a Royal Rumble.
Sure.
I don't know. It's just New Japan is more fragile than, say, copying something that WWE does, knowing it won't have any impact. But even if there's a small segment of fans that are just like, I'm not going to bother with the New Japan G1 anymore. They've kind of dumbed it down, and AEW has one, so I'm going to cancel my New Japan World subscription. Like, I don't know if that's a realistic scenario, but you'd think that if Danielson had gone over there, the AEW guys going over there does increase their subscriber count. But now Tony's not going to prove his guys to do it, so
he may or may not. We don't know, because Eddie was in the last G1, wasn't he?
He was.
Isn't that how he won his title?
Yeah.
That he then put up?
Not through the G1. He won it before.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Or one of his titles. Sorry, he was a dual title holder. He was Eddie 2 belts. So.
Yeah, I still don't understand how, him relinquishing the title and what this is all going to entail.
Think of it like a ladder match.
3 different titles.
Just think of it like a ladder match where you go into the match and you're not the champion until you come out of the match again. And it could be anybody in the match. So it's just a longer... Now, as far as, are they going to carry around 3 belts?
That's my question. How is it going to be defended? Does it become one title?
Which
promotion is going to recognize it? Is it going to be defended in New Japan, ROH, and AEW? Or is it just strictly an AEW title now? Or is it just going to go away like the Owen Hart title does after the Owen Hart Classic? Like, what are they going to do with it?
First and foremost, the Owen Hart title needed to go away because there's already too many. What I hope, and obviously Toni listens to this podcast because everything we suggest happens.
That's true.
What I hope happens is that this year it establishes the Triple Crown champion. It becomes one title. The other 2 disappear. ROH no longer has a world title. And what's the other one he holds? The Noah Strong?
New Japan Strong.
New Japan Strong. That one all folds into this Triple Crown Continental Championship. And because they have a working relationship with New Japan, it should be defended in both companies. And then next year, the Continental Classic is for the number 1 contendership. And that just becomes like your big annual guaranteed title shot for the Continental Classic. And maybe that happens over in Japan.
Like Brian Alvarez was kind of poking fun at it. He's like the Continental Championship. It's not the Intercontinental title. It's the Continental title.
Well, they already have the International.
It's different.
They have the International and the Continental, and if you combine those, it becomes the Intercontinental.
And it's not the TNT or the FTW title.
FTW is not recognized. You can't bring that one up. That's not recognized. It's on TV all the time. It's defended all the time.
There's so many titles. Like, there's just too many titles.
There is. The ROH TV title just got ignored. Got laid in the middle of the ring and forgotten.
Is there going to be... Well,
who the fuck
been watching
knows?
ROH. Maybe Billy Stark will win it.
I would be all for that. She's not even she still says she's not fully contracted. But,
When did she say that? She said she was signed by AEW.
It was a thread I was reading. Maybe it was old. Maybe it was back in March or something.
Well, I would hate to. I thought she said she signed an AEW.
I thought so too, so I was really surprised. But anyways. So as far as the Continental Classic goes, I think there's a lot of good stories being told. And one thing I noticed is that the International title isn't. I was like, it's been a couple weeks. Where's Orange Cassidy? Turns out he's on Rampage with Danhausen this week. that's pretty sad for that title. That
Right.
used to be like the number 2 in the company. What the fuck happened?
It's time. It's time for a break. Like, I mean, and I'm fine with them switching up the OC. Like OC having a singles match to start the show every week. Oh, it's fun, but it's it gets old. It gets old. Just like Moxley opening the show every week.
So Moxley is
old too.
Got to take time off after this. He's got to. He's got to disappear for a couple of weeks. Something.
Yeah.
Because you've said before he's overexposed. He definitely is. He's on too often. Yes, he's the ace. Yes, they turn to him. And don't get me wrong, he is fucking great. The audience loves him. He's got a great bond. He's a tough motherfucker. But be nice for him to be able to take a couple, 3 weeks off and then come back. 4 weeks off, 6 weeks off, and then come back.
It's not as if they don't have enough talent on the bench that aren't doing anything to, take his spot for a couple of weeks. So.
And that's the point. Give somebody a chance to elevate. So there's so many arguments online about too big a roster and this, that, and the other thing. You know, we're not the bookers. We know that there's definitely issues in AEW. We're coming up on the 5th year now? You know.
Wow.
Things are starting to not show cracks because I think Toni has finally realized he needs to start relying on other people. And the stories coming out are the people he's going to rely on start with Bryan Danielson. And that's why he was on the discipline committee. And that's why it's been leaked that he's giving out fines for people who aren't following social media code. I think that's great. I think that's an early establishment of him as an authority figure so he could transition into the office easier. Good.
I haven't heard that. Are there any specific incidents of him fining someone for something they did or said on social media?
The reports are there were a couple with no named names.
Oh,
so there were a couple fines.
That's
Look, there's only so much you can get. There's going to be more information later, I'm sure. But
you think if someone said something stupid, like the fans would be able to piece it together, like who was that got fined for social media violation, but who knows?
I don't think it was...
Britt Baker complaining about shit and liking people's posts, bitching because she's not on TV or whatever.
Guaranteed that is a work because Britt Baker, along with Adam Cole, understand the internet.
Yeah.
And MJF, they're Adam's best friend, works the internet like nobody. I have no. Mm-hmm.
Britt is a pretty straight shooter, I think, from what I've seen from her online. I guess I haven't seen a ton, but man, like when people were complaining about her shirt where she had the black eye,
yeah,
like she was not pulling any punches, and she wasn't joking, she wasn't playing a character. She was really fucking going after people, and she was really pissed. I mean, it could have been a work, but it seemed to me like that was all legit, because it could potentially hurt her merchandise sales, which is costing her money. So yeah, I could totally understand why she'd be pissed about that. Why it's okay for a guy to be pictured in a violent situation, but not a woman. I mean, it's sexist. So,
the argument, just to rehash it, because we talked about it then, the argument was she was in a domestic situation wearing a hoodie as opposed to a ring and wearing her outfit. And that's the only basis of argument that I see. It's that people could misconstrue it because it was in her home, as opposed to in a workplace environment or in the ring. The violent against men, I immediately thought of the Pantera album, Vulgar Display of Power, where the dude is literally getting clocked in the face, but he's a boxer or an MMA or whatever it was. So there's a subtle difference in that regard, I think. That's the only argument that I think has any basis as to why people might have complained. Otherwise, it was just bitching for bitching's sake.
Yeah.
That said,
Gotta be outraged about something. or you're not alive.
You certainly cannot be on the internet if you don't have an outrage of something.
Right.
Anything but something.
That could be a that could be an interesting instead of the spot of the week, which we haven't been doing a good job of. We've been pretty busy lately, but instead of the spot of the week or in addition to the spot of the week, we could do the outrage of the week and cover that.
Well, the reason we didn't do the spot of the week, that's primarily on me, is because they stopped having spots that were just out. Realistically, after, I don't remember which, it was the cage match. It was Blood and Guts. After Blood and Guts, there wasn't a whole lot of big spots because people were recovering.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some shit that happened in Blood and Guts. People are still hurt from that match. So,
and speaking of which, Dante Martin's back after his
finally
messed up spot. So yeah, good to see Dante back.
Absolutely, really happy to see him back with his brother. And now they've teamed up with Action Andretti, so maybe they can have some trios action when eventually the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass come back. I don't know what happened to them. They got beat up by the Masked Men, and that was like a month ago.
Yeah, I feel like I haven't seen them in forever.
It feels like a month. It's probably been at least 3 weeks.
Tony doesn't have anything for him.
They've been off screen longer than Adam Cole, who's legitimately got an ankle shattering surgery, and he's going to be out for 9 months. They get thrown through fake plate glass windows.
Does anyone still think the Adam Cole injury is a work?
I don't even fucking know anymore. Because realistically, it could have been so minor. They could just be selling the ever-loving shit out of it so he can make a surprise return. He could pull a John Cena and simply will himself to be better faster. Because John Cena, fucking, we've seen Bryan Danielson do that recently. Will himself not to feel the effects of a fucking broken orbital bone.
Thanks, Andrade.
Well, that's a whole nother story. But he didn't even notice it till something went numb. And he's like, yeah, maybe I need to address this. Maybe. And he still wrestled a match where then he faked the injury so he could get it legitimately dealt with. Mm-hmm. That man is a consummate worker. I don't want to spoil anything, but reports are he got hurt on the taping for Collision, and he absolutely did not get hurt. It was all pre-planned, 100%. Apparently, poking you in the eye can make your eye bleed. That's the injury.
Well, if you've just had a bunch of surgery on your orbital bone and someone smacks you in it, I don't know what happens. So,
these are the reports, but the fact of the matter is, it was a pre-planned setup where you probably had to get permission first. I assume a person who's on that panel is named Bryan Danielson.
Yeah, he can give himself permission, I think.
He probably just had to announce it to his team. Hey, guys, this is the spot I'm doing. Okay, sir. I mean, TK's already said he's the one who's taking over. So once he retires, you know he's putting a bunch on his shoulders.
Yeah, that's the thing, though.
That's what I see happening.
If Danielson's retiring,
right,
and he wants to spend more time with his family and not wrestling, like, what is he going to do? Run the show remote? Like, because he's going to be on the road. 2 nights a week he has to be.
I think there's a big difference between, I mean, realistically now they have some more house shows. They have other things beyond just the 2 weekly shows. But I think just showing up to help run or maybe going into an office, there's a lot of remote stuff that you're able to do at the higher levels that don't require you to be in an office every single day. I mean, fucking Toni clearly does it remotely for everything he does. So, there's got to be backstage administrative crap that Danielson's being trained for, I'm sure, to help take over. creatively he's in on the stuff. Absolutely, you could do that remote. But I think travel as an announcer or travel as backstage production, like Tony's level, is a lot different than travel as a wrestler.
Tony's at every show.
No, I'm not saying that he doesn't travel as much. I think Tony lives on his fucking airplane because he also has his other executive duties with other professional shit in other fucking countries.
I guess my point is that, like, Danielson, regardless of whether he's wrestling or not, if he said he was going to be spending more time at home and then he's going to be traveling for Wednesday night and then traveling for Friday night shows, like, he's not going to be home. He's going to have to leave on either Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, and he's not going to be home until Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. Like, that's over half his week. So
I don't necessarily agree with having to leave on Tuesday for a Wednesday night show if you're an administrator.
I mean, it depends. If you're going to get to Saskatoon, you're going to have to leave the day before.
Well, okay,
if it's in
obviously.
If it's in Chicago. But yeah, it depends on how many transfers there are. It depends.
He's going to be a CEO. He's going to have the fucking private jet.
Oh, he's not getting the private jet.
Oh, fuck. Yes, he is if he's CEO. If he's taking over with Tony, he's damn well going to be on the jet with Tony at least.
So, I mean, I don't know where Danielson lives. So, but I don't see Tony stopping by and picking him up.
So he buys him a plane.
That's a lot.
Put it in his contract.
Even just maintaining a staff to run your private jet is
okay. Fine. So you charter a private. So you charter a private weekly.
Yeah,
twice a week.
Regardless, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me that Danielson's going to quit wrestling because he wants to spend more time with his family and then take an exec position where he's on the road half the week.
I don't see him being on the road half the week.
Well, the boys aren't going to respect the executive who's calling the show and doing the booking if he ain't in Gorilla. So
I don't see him having to travel half the week. He could easily show up the day of and leave that same day and sleep in his bed at home. Why couldn't he?
Wednesday night and Saturday night.
Yeah. Show up and maybe he leaves early Sunday morning and early Thursday morning. Again, private chartered jet, leaves when he wants, gets up, gets on, home. I don't.
That any different than if he's doing the same thing as a wrestler?
Oh, you just said he's got to worry about the transfers. He's got to worry about luggage and check-in. There's a whole different level of travel when you've got a private jet waiting for you at your beck and call. Now it becomes a matter of, I get on the plane, I show up at the arena, I do my job, I get on the plane, I go the fuck home.
Okay, I'll take one more shot at this. So Danielson said he's going to quit wrestling so he could spend more time with his family. His current schedule is he has to be there on Wednesday night and Saturday night. If he stops wrestling and becomes an executive and still has to be there on Wednesday night and Saturday night, nothing fucking changes. So there's no reason for him to retire.
The level of travel required as a wrestler is significantly different than the level of travel required.
Why? He's got to be there on Wednesday night and Saturday night, regardless if he's wrestling or in Gorilla.
Did you not talk about transfers and other issues with travel?
It's the same travel.
Not when you have a private jet.
It's the same amount of travel, regardless of. So you're saying Tony Khan won't let him travel on the private jet now, but after he stops wrestling, Tony's going to suddenly have a private jet service for him? It doesn't make any sense.
Sure, why not? When he signs him to an executive position, why not?
Doesn't make any sense.
Sure it does.
No, it makes zero sense.
It makes perfect sense.
He's got to be there 2 nights a week. Regardless of a private jet or not, doesn't matter. It doesn't make any sense that Brian's saying, he's going to retire to spend more time with his family, but if he's going to be in Gorilla, if he's going to be there every week as an executive, then nothing changes for him, so... I guess your argument is like the difference is contingent on him having a private jet if he becomes an executive. All right, if you choose to think that, that's fine, but I don't think that. It doesn't really make any sense to me. So,
but it does to me.
My take. Okay, well there we go. Agree.
It makes perfect sense to me. Because an executive would get a private jet a private jet again. It's chartered twice a week. Pick them up,
you think
drop them
CM
off.
Punk, when he was running Collision, was using a private jet for all those shows?
Number one, if he was a total retard because he didn't need to. And number two, he wasn't an executive even if he thought he was.
Well, he was running Collision, basically.
He may have had that authority, but that doesn't mean that he has a contract signed where he is an executive where he gets a private jet.
Oh, we know he had multiple contracts.
That's true.
We know he had an executive contract.
I talked about the fact that he probably did. We don't know it for a fact, but there's a pretty goddamn good chance.
When Toni,
you're right. He did talk about it. He did.
Yeah,
he said he also had the talent contract plus the office contract.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like two contract Cutler.
Well,
you know?
much like the EVPs, there are multiple contracts. Much like QT, who was a vice president.
And Cutler is 3 contract Cutler now, because now that we've gone from BTE to being the Dark Order. Cutler
no. BTE stands for best tag team ever.
Okay.
That's what BTE is, best tag ever.
Okay.
And BTDO.
Cutler has 3 contracts now because the Dark Order wants to sign him.
Well, they did 6 figures.
That's right.
To be the cameraman.
3 contracts.
And editor, because Lord knows they couldn't do it. Cutler has a lot of contracts.
And if Cutler's the devil, he could have a 4th contract. I mean, wouldn't that be something?
It really would. So after Jon Moxley, there was a segment with Renee backstage. Well, first of all, we'll just talk about this real quick. Renee had Roderick Strong and the Kingdom come out, and they talked about Joe. And Roderick Strong said that he no longer wants to be the victim of his own consequence, or he no longer wants to suffer the consequences of his own actions. And so, which is pretty impressive, not to suffer the consequences of his own actions. And now he no longer needs the wheelchair. So Next Strong has finally admitted he doesn't need the wheelchair, even though he's had an entire match already. So, then, of course, we had Hangman Page backstage with Renee. And MJF had a little promo off with Adam. Did you enjoy that segment where Adam Page sort of did an impromptu with MJF backstage?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting segment. It's nice to see Hangman recognized as being a former champion. And, obviously I think this certainly led to Hangman either smashing a bottle over MJF's head or being framed for taking out MJF because there was a broken beer bottle next to MJF when he was found unconscious. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I did enjoy this segment. On one hand, I'm super happy that Hangman's getting involved, and it makes me think, oh well, maybe the Bucks are some of the guys in the masks in the back that have been pestering MJF, and when the Bucks come back as heels, Hangman's gonna lead this heel faction that's not quite the elite, but still the elite. So it gives me hope that there's going to be a push for Hanger and the Bucks in some way. On the other hand, it's like now we're adding another guy to the mix of the people who are chasing MJF.
Yep.
And it's like, what is this like the 6th or 7th storyline around MJF right now? So, well, I guess the Jay White one is over, so we can drop that one. Now we're replacing it with Hangman. So I don't know. It's like we could be having a Hangman versus Wardlow program right now, which would be absolutely incredible. The stuff those two guys could do in the ring would be insane. But both of them are sitting around, it looks like right now, chasing MJF until after the end of the world at the end of this month. So I don't know. Hopefully after, and I'm calling the pay-per-view the wrong name.
It's World's End.
We're at the end of the world.
End of the world.
Hopefully after the end of the world pay-per-view in January, we'll see Wardlow and Hangman get more involved. in some stuff. And it's not to say Hangman hasn't been ignored recently. I mean, he had a really good program with Swerve. He has been off a couple of weeks, and he said it was because of a head injury after getting hit in the back of the head with a cinder block,
and then choked with a chain.
Yeah. So yeah,
good reason to sell.
Like
good reason to sell. Yeah,
I like the segment a lot. I think it opens up to a lot of possibilities that give me hope as a fan that I'm going to be super excited about some of the angles coming up, because I would love to see the Elite versus MJF, even if they're not the Elite anymore, and Kenny's off in a tag team with Jericho having boring matches against fake tag teams that were just thrown together at the last minute because TK doesn't know what the hell he's doing. But
the Continental Classic shows that he does know what he's doing sometimes. And why couldn't we just have this type of booking more often? Just, not necessarily having tournaments every time, but everybody seems to have a little bit of a story building. Speaking of story, the next match was Swerve Strickland versus Mark Briscoe. We talked about it. Swerve won, so he's now 3-0, same as Jon Moxley, same amount of points. They're at 9, and Mark Briscoe has been mathematically eliminated. It was a great match. Swerve and Briscoe. Briscoe seemed a little bit more conservative, a little bit more he just sort of, he had a slightly different style. He wasn't quite as brawler style as last week or as he normally does. And I think it's because he knew coming in it was win or die, and he was up against the wall, and Swerve Strickland was definitely better than him on this night. It was a great match. It was a fantastic match. Swerve is getting better every week, and Briscoe is beloved by the crowd. This loss in the tournament won't hurt him. I hate to see him as a punching bag, but, his match against Jay Lethal to see who's going to be last should be interesting. Swerve's crazy. Swerve's fucking crazy. After his match with Hangman, I don't know what to expect anymore. What about you?
He's done some crazy stuff, even in ROH. Like, what did he do? He did I don't know. It was an early AEW ROH show, and Swerve did a poison Rana off the apron to the floor. He worked it for someone. I can't even remember who it was, but yeah, he does a lot of amazing stuff in the ring. He has a very unique style. All of his moves are very well thought out. They all look great. So yeah, I like to see Swerve getting this push here. As for Mark Briscoe, I guess I kind of feel bad. He came in after his brother passed and got the AEW contract and got to fight on TV, and he won all his matches, understandably. But now, just to see him all of a sudden become a jobber, it's I don't know. I just hope that they can find something for him. And it's also interesting that he said he won't be in another tag team again, and I think that limits what he's going to be able to do, because I don't really see him as a big star in singles. I don't see him at the top of the card. I don't think we're ever going to see Mark Briscoe main event in a pay-per-view. I just don't feel like he's at that level. Yeah, so I don't know. It's going to be real interesting to see what happens with him.
Briscoe has just a very odd history because he spent all that time in ROH with his brother, established themselves as kings of tag wrestling for ROH, rightfully so. They were incredible. Their past came back to haunt them a couple of times, and Warner Brothers flat out said, we don't want them in our television, and they may even have poisoned the entire ROH deal to begin with. Which seems unfortunate that would have happened, but I myself was prejudiced against Jay for his statements. Mark seems to be a different guy. I'm not holding it against him. He's a hell of a wrestler. He's connected with the audience. I think long term Mark's going to be okay. I don't like him losing all the matches either. I don't think he's going to come out completely with 0 wins. I think he's going to get a win, but I don't think anybody would have had a problem if this was a tie or, time limit draw, whatever. but the story is Swerve Moxley. And so, unfortunately, Briscoe had to lose. And that it just kind of sucked.
Right.
So then we actually had the match that was supposed to be MJF versus Samoa Joe instead with MJF and Samoa Joe versus the Masked Men. Instead, Joe comes out, lights flash, out comes, well, I almost called it Retribution, but it's the Devil's Masked Men. And then they show the Devil, they show Max knocked out with a beer bottle, and Joe goes and runs, and there's no match. So it doesn't bother me that there was no match. Some people were pissed off, yada. This is a way to keep Max from having to wrestle with a hurt labrum. We know he's hurt. We wondered last week in the chat, how's he going to, why are they having Max wrestle when he's hurt? Well, they didn't. They figured out a way not to have him wrestle so that next week or at World's End, he can wrestle as best he can, etc. So I was fine with it. It was a great little setup. It implicated Hangman, but it's probably not. It's probably the Kingdom and Kyle O'Reilly. O'Reilly?
And Bobby Fish.
Maybe.
Now that Punk's gone, maybe Tony will bring him back.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. There's no hard feelings, right? No. Fish was terrible. He never connected with anybody.
I liked Bobby Fish.
He didn't connect with anybody. He didn't get a chance. With really.
Me. I liked him. I liked him and O'Reilly as a tag team.
The Red Dragon is different. As a tag team, they had a little bit different because they had Adam. But then you got Adam hurt, and then Kyle got hurt, and then Fish on his own just wasn't enough.
I liked Fish. It was sad to see him go. I wonder how that went. If it was Fish saying, I'm not going to work for any less than this amount and with like a guaranteed push, and Tony's like, sorry, I'm not going to do that. And then he's like, oh, okay, I'll just go be a huge star in Impact then. Like, I'm not sure how it all went down, but
it was a Punk interaction. Who knows?
Yeah, it definitely could have been just like Colt.
It was a Punk interaction, and Tony took Punk's side as at least twice more than he should have. But the next section that I want to talk about, we talked a little bit about it already, was the cake section. But what was really fun was from Turner Classic Movies, Ben Mankiewicz introduced Toni Storm. Because if you're a fan of classic noir, you've ever watched Turner Classic Noir movies, you know who Ben Mankiewicz is. I know who he is. Yes, it appeals to a much older demographic. Most people didn't know who he was. Absolutely appropriate to introduce Toni Storm in her Timeless Toni Storm gimmick. I think this is the best thing going on for the women. She had a pretty good match against Skye Blue. They've wrestled before. Skye Blue has developed a lot and is getting better. She was never going to win. It was never about her winning. She got to showcase she had a good character, and they worked really well together. Toni Storm, the timing of the director of the camera direction sucks in AEW, and it has for a long time. They mistimed a couple of things. Toni clearly set up with the time for my close-up, and they couldn't quite get it in time to switch to black and white for her attack, and then at the end, black and white. I think just the way they're producing Toni, her character with the big wind-up swing punch, I love what she's adding. And if she continues to work in some old-timey stuff, this could have some legs. Because how dare you? That's getting over. The chin up, tits out, watch for the shoe. Ben Mankiewicz did not quite say the entire promo. He did say head up and watch for the shoe. But he didn't say tits out. They couldn't get him to say tits out.
Right.
But there you go. Toni Storm is over because of tits out. The woman has no... she's very small-chested. She's very small-chested. But she's over because she said tits out. Is that sexist? Is that any different than The Rock talking about the strudel? I just...
People's strudel.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. You knew she loved the strudel because every time he brought it up, she blushed like crazy. I forget what announcer that was, but he just made her blush like crazy. Speaking of blush, Skye Blue and Toni Storm have some cake. It was a good match. Skye Blue, as our thumbnail shows, got pinned and lost. But yeah, thumbs up to the cameraman. They know the draw of that girl, and she's not afraid to show off her assets. Right. Good for her. What would you rate that match?
I thought it was fine. I was a little distracted watching that one. Not by the asses, but had some other stuff going on. So I can't like give it a rating. Okay. But yeah, I mean, Storm won as expected, and yeah, she'll continue her push, continue her run, and yeah, it's gonna be real interesting when what's her name comes back.
Jamie Hayter.
Yeah, when Hayter comes back, to see that could be really interesting this time around.
Well, and until then, Mariah May is who, by the way, is from Stardom. She will tell you that.
Yeah.
During her backstage with Renee earlier in the night, she was very supportive of Toni, and she made a match with Tony Khan, but she wouldn't say who it was. So after Toni Storm won her match, the announcers mentioned that there was no Mariah May ringside. So I think Mariah May is going to be a short-term opponent to get her established. They're working off an old movie, All About Eve, so that's why Mariah May kept quoting All About Toni. Great. It's working. Keep it up. It's going to be a fun match. They've worked together before in Stardom, so that I think they'll be able to transfer it well, and I'm excited to see it. Riho is the next match. She came out at the end of the match and set up her next program, so I think Mariah May is going to be after Riho, and then we'll get somebody interesting. We'll see. It doesn't look like it's going to be Mercedes Moné. Looks like she's going back to be Sasha Banks.
Oh, that's too bad. Just the timing with that injury.
If she hadn't been injured,
unfortunate, yeah,
she would have shown up most likely at the AEW pay-per-view where they showed her. I don't remember which one it was, Full Gear maybe. But here's the thing. She worked New Japan. She got hurt, and then she immediately went back to WWE as soon as Triple H took over. I think she understood just how hard it is in the real world. In WWE, she was successful, much like Punk, much like Cody, much like everybody else that we were talking about in the chat earlier. The fact is, if you can work in that machine and you're able to be successful in that machine, there is so much comfort in knowing that company will not go away and that you don't have to work a certain hard style, that it's intentionally softer on their bodies because of things like injury. I don't blame them sometimes. I don't like it. I think Mercedes herself also knows that she got her part from The Mandalorian by being on WWE, not AEW. So, if you want to go into Hollywood, WWE's where you go. That's where Jade Cargill went. And I don't blame her either.
Right.
Because if you want to be a wrestler, show up at AEW, put in the work. You want to be a movie star, go to WWE.
Where do you go if you want to finish your story?
Well, you don't go to WWE. And I'll tell you why. There's a lesson to be learned here. Back in the day, years ago, there was a TV show called Arrow, Green Arrow. It was on the CW. That first season, got so much positive reviews, and people were like, my God, they did so good, yada yada. They finished all the stories. They never knew if they were going to get a second season. And so they closed all the loops. They killed all the villains. They finished the story. And it was very satisfying. By the 6th season, they stopped finishing the stories and kept planning for the next season. And it was boring as shit. Because they wouldn't finish any stories. I don't think Cody is ever going to get the chance to finish the story because WWE are perennial cock blockers. And Cody is going to get cock blocked by either The Rock or CM Punk at this year's WrestleMania. Now, mind you, they're talking CM Punk is going to be wrestling Stone Cold. I don't know if Stone Cold's actually going to come back for it. He might.
He'd probably do it for the paycheck, but...
well, he did it for Kevin Owens.
Would, who's going to lose that match? Because Stone Cold ain't losing. So it's like, is Punk willing to job to Stone Cold for how much money? I don't know.
To get his main event?
I mean, that's why he's in WWE, is because he's running out of money.
Yeah,
he lost
clearly.
He's not going to make it acting, that failed. He's not going to make it in UFC, that failed. He's not going to make it in AEW, that failed. So crawl back to WWE and, pop your Chicago fans or whatever.
Get the money, keep your nose clean. That's about the best he has.
Right.
So next up we have Switchblade versus Jay Lethal. Jay versus Jay. And I'm sure you were happy to hear that Jay won. The fans seem to be more into chanting about Jay than they were really working hard to be into the match, but it was not that great for me. I was not a big fan of this match. Jay White ultimately pulled it out. Jay Lethal got no points, and he also is now mathematically eliminated. But, I don't know. Jay White, without his crew, seems to be missing something. And that's a glaring weakness of Jay White and his character work. He needs that backup in order to feel legitimate. And this tournament is showing that. Jay Lethal, he's Team TNA. He's already a joke. He could be a great wrestler, but I don't know. He also is just in this to lose and maybe be a spoiler later on for somebody. I don't know. I think he's probably going to end up losing to Mark Briscoe. What'd you think?
I thought it was a solid match. There was a lot of good grappling. I always like watching Lethal work. I think he's the consummate professional and one of the best to ever do it from a technical standpoint.
True.
I love watching the Jay Lethal training videos where he's at his own gym, his own ring, wrestling with different people like May from Choco Pro. He was kind of sparring with even Ric Flair at one point.
Training for his last match.
Yeah, and Lethal was the man in ROH for a while. He was the heavyweight champion for a while and had some classics. But it seems like he's only 38. I would have thought he was older than that. He's 38. He's had 1,300 matches. It just seems like he's kind of winding down his career at this point. And I don't know. I always like watching him fight, so I hope he sticks around.
But
worst, I don't expect to see him at the top of the card, right?
He can't, because his entire thing it's been stuck on this for a long time, is imitating other people. It's one thing to do the Fargo strut and the two fingers and the woo. It's another when you're teaming with Jeff Jarrett. And it's yet another when Ric Flair is still in the company with you. Jay Lethal does a top rope elbow after Macho Man because he was, Lethal Macho or Macho Lethal or whatever his name was. He was fantastic, but he wasn't his own character. He's never really had a character. He's a wrestler. He's a fantastic wrestler. I hate his finisher, the back spring elbow into a cutter. I just hate that finisher. But he's a phenomenal wrestler. He just doesn't have that character. And similar to Jay White, now that he's on Team TNA, he needs them, and even with them, he can't win. So I don't know what to say about Lethal. He's a good hand. That's it. He's a good hand. He can do the job. Is that really what you want your career to be?
Hey, I mean, he's had a solid career, better than 99% of the people to ever try and do it, for sure.
It's true.
He's definitely a 1%er. I mean, it's like, I mean, you always want more. You always want to be the top guy, but you can only have so many top guys. So there's no shame in not being there. I think he should be proud of what he's accomplished, and hopefully he can do a little more good stuff in the future.
Fair enough. Last match of the night, and then we can wrap this bad boy up because we're doing okay on time, but we should get through this. Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage, which, again, it's been 14 years since they went one-on-one. Cool. They have 40 years worth of history because they did grow up together. And it was interesting because Killswitch Luchasaurus wasn't ringside. Nick Wayne wasn't ringside. There was nobody ringside for Christian Cage. And Adam Copeland came out and wrestled a good match. And then Nick Wayne's mom, who's got it going on, came out. Shayna Wayne came out. And she hit Adam Copeland in the head with a chair, and Christian got the win because, he hit a kill switch because the chair shot was weak. But who's the face? I know Copeland is getting all the cheers because Cage says some nasty stuff. But Copeland was the one who gave the concerto to the teenager in front of his mother. So she's kind of justified in hitting Copeland over the head.
Makes all the sense in the world. Anyone who says otherwise needs to lighten up.
Well, that too. I don't know that I would put it that way. I would say, if you're bugged by a lot of these details, you just should think to yourself, it's just a TV show. I need to relax. That's it. That's your mantra. That's the Mystery Science Theater 3000 mantra. It's just a TV show. Relax. I happen to like the match. It was okay. The fans, it was over. Cage is over. Copeland was pretty over. The finish, people seem to be into it. I thought the double spear was interesting. I've never seen a double spear. Copeland had a lot of good counters. He knew how to counter the spear. He knew how to counter everything. They wrestled like they knew each other as well they should. It was a good match. Christian ended up winning, which I want to say was the right choice because they can have a rematch at the pay-per-view. But, man, Copeland winning would have been cool because nobody else was ringside. Yeah, I know they brought out Shayna, and quite honestly, I wonder if they're going to do Christmas pictures. Could you imagine the awkward Christmas pictures?
Right.
With Christian and Shayna Wayne and the golden boy Nick Wayne between them, and behind them is Cinderella.
Dinosaur.
Cinderella.
Yeah.
The redheaded stepchild who gets treated poorly. So
yeah, Killshot is his new name.
Yeah, even Christian can't keep that straight now, can he?
No, I thought it made sense for Christian to win. I mean, that's how feuds are. The heel gets the advantage, and then the babyface fights back. It's just wrestling 101. So, there were people complaining about that, like on social media, who just, it's like they were going to end their lives over it. It's like, have you guys ever watched wrestling before? This is how it works. So the loss doesn't hurt Edge in any way, and these guys are going to continue to feud. And I'm looking forward to them teaming up at some point. I don't know if it'll happen. I mean, it might. It might not. But I would like to see them team up at some point, and their pay-per-view match certainly should be interesting.
Copeland's got to come up with a better name. Copeland's got to come up with a better name, though.
I want to see the Bucks, the Hardys, and Edge and Christian in a ladder match. Like, I just want to see that. And hell, bring Bubba in. Bring Bubba and Devon in. I know Devon. I don't think he's too mobile these days, but
neither.
To have the Bucks in the match with those three legendary teams would just be awesome. So.
I would also love to see that, but unfortunately, Jeff and Matt in a ladder match is no. Please no. Please no. Jeff is already dangerous.
Right.
And Matt, oh, he's complaining. He's complaining that he's not getting. You know what, Matt? Dude, you did the best you could. You're not getting TV time because you're not getting over. Figure it out. Nobody's getting TV time.
Yeah, I mean, he's been complaining constantly since he's joined AEW. He complained because, the pandemic, and he's like, my character doesn't get over unless there's a live crowd. It's like, dude, there's a live crowd there for nobody. You're not any different. So, reinvent yourself another way. I don't know. I don't know what I just feel like these guys, their expectations are too high, but at the same time they believe in themselves and they believe they can do more. So I don't fault them for that. But maybe just don't complain about it on social media. Maybe do what you can to better yourself to get the spot you think you deserve instead of whining about it.
The thing about Matt that I've noticed is that he hasn't invented a new character since his Broken Matt character. In AEW, he did Broken, Woken, Joken Matt. He did Big Money Matt. He did the Leech Matt. He did all these different characters, but he hasn't done anything new. Christian's doing new shit, and it's phenomenal work. You got to reinvent yourself. Right. If nothing else, Jericho knows how to reinvent himself. Kenny Omega, he's a phenomenal wrestler, but he really has to come up. I mean, he did the cleaner for a while, and he's changed things up a little bit. He's got to also change things up some more and reinvent himself to really stay fresh. I think the Elite, not the Elite, I think the Bucks coming back with their new shtick with Cabana and Cutler, whatever their new group is going to be, I think if they do it right, could be a good reinvention for them. I think that's the real key. Toni Storm just reinvented herself, bigger than ever. Skye Blue just reinvented herself, better than ever. Julia Hart reinvented herself, better than ever. As you grow as a wrestler and an entertainer, you have to keep reinventing yourself. You can't just keep falling back on the same old shit. And that's what Matt Hardy has been doing. Jeff Hardy hasn't done anything new in 2 fucking decades. That's why they're stale. But that's just my take. I want to hear what anybody else has to say. Do you have any last words? I'm going to stop this bad boy.
Yeah, hold on. Let's do you want to talk about Blue League real quick?
Sure, let's talk about the Blue League. What do you want to talk about the Blue League? That's the Collision League, by the way. Because clearly gold is for Dynamite.
That's right. So we got Brody King in first place with 6 points, and most of the guys. Well, you got 3 guys with 2 matches, or 4 guys with 2 matches, and then Danielson and Andrade have each only had 1. So it just seems like, I'm surprised Eddie Kingston got the loss. If he loses again, he's eliminated.
Mathematically eliminated, yeah.
Yeah. And if Brody King wins one more match against Andrade, Daniel Garcia, is Brody King really going to lose to Daniel Garcia? That would put Eddie's best chance of winning it at a tie. So I don't know. I think Danielson's going to definitely come out of this bracket and fight Swerve, probably Swerve.
So you think Danielson's going to be the one that wins gold or blue?
I think a win blue. Yeah. I
So
do.
looking, it's Brody King, Bryan Danielson, Andrade, Claudio, Eddie, and Daniel Garcia. We could already write off Garcia. He's 0-2 coming into the night. Eddie Kingston also 0-2 coming into the weekend. Claudio 1-1. Yeah,
1-1.
Yeah. So he's doing okay. He's middle of the pack. He's got plenty of story any direction he can go. Andrade, he picked up his first win, didn't he? He got a win.
Yeah, he beat Garcia.
Yeah, beat Garcia last week. And then Danielson, they worked it out, and he's going to have a stretch where he's got 3 matches in a week.
Yep.
Because of the way that the rotation works and when it's going to finish up. So Danielson's going to have a hell of a story. He's coming in hurt. Does he come out of it and just work through it? I don't know. Moxie's getting hurt as he's going through it. Swerve came in hurt. He's doing well. So the Blue League, Brody King is the monster. And if it comes down to it, will it be Brody King versus Eddie? And then you're saying Eddie wins and goes up ultimately against Swerve.
No, I'm not saying Eddie Kingston wins at all. No. I'm saying Danielson
wins.
wins.
Danielson. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. No, Eddie, I think I wouldn't. Eddie's got Andrade, Claudio, and Garcia left. So he's fought the 2 toughest guys in the tournament. So I definitely could see Kingston getting 9 points. But, Danielson and King and would both have to lose, 3 matches to fall behind Kingston. So I don't know. We could see a tiebreaker situation here.
It depends on the stories they want to tell, and I think Brody King, the monster, is the story of the Blue League.
Mm-hmm.
And I think whoever it is has to knock him off to get the win, ultimately. So I think that's kind of who could it be? Well, right now you got Danielson and Andrade and Claudio, who are positive points. Kingston, who's at 0, might be able to overcome it if he wins out and then ultimately has to beat Brody in order to advance. Maybe that's the story. It feels like this was built for Danielson and Kingston. Like the tournament was built for those 2 together. Like Danielson, so he doesn't have to go to Japan. He can stay close to home and he can still be in the tournament. And Kingston, so he could be in a classic and have his belts and do the Triple Crown or whatever. Kingston getting those first 2 losses confused the fuck out of me as to what his narrative is. Is it the comeback kid, Eddie Kittenston, comes back from nothing and wins the whole thing? Or is it just, as I think it was Kingpin or Sentinel said, it's the next step in his downward spiral? I just don't know at this point. I don't think Garcia stands any chance of picking up more than a couple of points, really. That's sad.
I agree.
And that's sad. Danielson is so high quality, how you don't see him losing. And then Brody King, they've already built up as a monster. Andrade has to lose a match or 2 somewhere. So, and then you have Claudio, who I would have thought going in would have been one of the favorites. But you have 3 members of the BCC.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be, I think the Danielson matches coming up first, Brody King, Andrade, Claudio, and Garcia are all going to be interesting. The Garcia match is interesting because Garcia beat Danielson. Now that's where he got his Dragon Slayer move.
That's true.
The name of that from. So I'm interested to see them face off again. I think all 4 of those Danielson matches are going to be excellent. I can't wait to see him fight Claudio. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
There's a lot of fun matches. I love this Continental Classic layout. The tournament is great. It's got built-in storyline. They all tell the stories themselves. There's so many positives towards having this. I think that, again, it must tie in, not must, but I think it does tie in with New Japan, because it is one of their belts that's up for this, I think Tony got permission. I don't think there's any problem with New Japan. I really don't. They've got a pay-per-view together. They've now got this where one of their belts are co-defended. I think we're going to see lots of action of whoever wins this in Japan. That's all I'm guessing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think it's something that where it's going to cause New Japan to terminate the relationship or anything. But I think Gato's got to be shaking his head and going, God damn it, man. He's like, they took our tournament. Not that they necessarily owned it. Like, the Grand Prix has been going on in all Japan, and Noah has their own similar tournament. So I think things will be fine, but I don't know. You just got to think that New Japan is kind of shaking their head at this, and basically losing the opportunity to have Danielson come over and compete in their G1. I think that would have been huge for him.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have seen those matchups, Danielson against the top New Japan guys. So I guess we'll just have to wait until the next. Danielson does have Okada at Wrestle Kingdom, and then at Forbidden Door in April. If Danielson stays healthy, we should get maybe he'll get to fight Naito or something we haven't seen before. So I think lots of good stuff yet to come.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you if you're still with us. Thank you so much for listening. Join us at the Discord, EliteMarkOrder.com. Click on Join Us in the Discord. You could always go to Zazzle.com, pick up a T-shirt. We've got a couple of different ones. I still got to set up that new Cry Me a River shirt that you set up in the Discord. That way you can purchase it, wear it proudly to a show. But thank you once again for listening. If you want, give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a comment, share. Do what you want. We love to hear what you have to say. And there is only one way that we could possibly sign this off, and that is JJ for life.
All right. Good deal. I stopped